Hey guys, before we get started with the episode, I just have two announcements to make. One, I have the Jibs journal is out now. I send a weekly journal through email every single week that covers episode highlights, tips and tricks that the entrepreneurs in the show have gone over, and just other cool things that are happening. If you're interested in being subscribed to that journal, the link is in the description. The second announcement is I've released a course. So the course is how to crowdfund for your passion project, your side hustle. I crowdfunded over $65,000 in less than 90 days through my organization called Research Detroit. And the class is going to cover, the nitty-gritty details on how I did that, how I delegated the tasks with my team, the templates, the samples. It goes into full detail on how to run an effective crowdfunding campaign. So if you're interested in taking that course, the link is in the description as well.
It's just about getting up and doing it and finding the time, finding the people, and making it happen.
You take control and you say, okay, this needs to be done, and you do it.
And you're never ready to start a business. You just either do it or you don't.
Welcome to the Jibs Podcast, showcasing Detroit's movers and shakers, bringing you stories that reveal the gusto and grit that's long defined the city and its people. Together, we'll uncover the history and direction of the Motor City, one voice at a time. This is the Jibs Podcast with Jibran Ahmed.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the newest episode of the Jibs Podcast. I'm here with Rami and Sean, creators of EnBiologics, and you guys' newest product is HoneyCure.
Yes.
Well, thanks for being here, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Let's get right into it. Who are you guys? What's your background, and what do you do?
I'm Sean, and my background is I'm a biomedical engineer by my master's degree, a chemical engineer in my undergraduate. I did a lot of biomaterials research in my previous research life. I still do to a certain extent, and I've been involved in EnBiologics for the last 2 years with Rami. We've been really developing HoneyCure originally as a pediatric burn care product, and then we've workshopped it up into a wound care in general product, and we've laser focused in on the veterinary care segment. Rami has an interesting background with natural care products himself, and as we met in biomedical engineering program, in the biomedical engineering,
biomedical engineering program, the master's degree.
Yeah.
So Sean, for example, he started as a chemical engineer with his bachelor's. Yeah. I started as a biomedical physics graduate. And I, like Sean said, I have the experience with natural products since I come from a part of the world that deals more with natural treatments and other than, going towards the synthetic stuff. So when we met both at the master's program in biomedical engineering, part of our class was to develop a device/product that would provide better care for something that we notice at the hospital. That's our job as engineers.
Right.
And that's when we started the idea.
Yeah. What we actually came up with first is a fully fledged system, which really impressed our course instructors at the time. And HoneyCure was actually only a very small segment of that system. What we had envisioned was something that you could rapidly deploy at the first onset of a burn, which is when you deal with burns and wounds. The golden hour is what they call it, is very similar to the golden hour for cardiac arrest. The first hour of a wound is when you get the most valuable part of your treatment. And our envisionment for our system was you had this quick deploy device, and then you brought them into the hospital, and then you had our product, which at its second stage, which is HoneyCure, that they would then be used to help jumpstart the wound in its healing process and really mediate it through. And then you would have a third stage that would be a long-term care product that would really help the wound mature and stay in the matured healing stages of a wound. And that system itself in all three segments was quite complex. We ended up focusing in on HoneyCure because it was the minimum viable product of the entire thing. It could function well enough on its own as a quick deploy product, but it is vastly superior for the whole duration of the wound care therapy, which is where you get the most value for your buck in wound care. The other two ended segments are more targeted for human care and definitely more viable in that space. Yeah. But as we've gone into the veterinary space, we found that HoneyCure really is the most value for the customer.
Mm-hmm. Can you kind of talk about how you guys came across even developing such a product? Like, obviously honey, I mean, we all eat honey, but how do you figure out that honey is something that can do something like this?
So while we were doing the project during our master's program, we were partners in the project. And I came to Sean and I said, hey, well, Sean was the one who noticed a problem in the pediatric unit, burn unit, which was the dealing with the burns is treated with something called Silvadene, which was available since World War II. Same thing, it's never changed. And actually some research shows that it actually makes it worse, not treats. So Sean found the problem, and then I was like, well, hold on, we use honey in Egypt. We've used it for 7,000 years. They even found it in tombs of pharaohs, and it doesn't go bad, and it's very easy to use. It's not very easy to use. It's very good to use and useful as a topical product. Then Sean, because he has the chemical background, the chemical engineering background, we decided to create HoneyCure, which is not just honey. Because if you use just honey, it's gonna be hard to deal with. It's too sticky, too what's the word?
Too viscous.
Too viscous.
It's too thick.
Yeah. And we wanted to also work on the anti-inflammation. So the honey is a very strong antimicrobial, and we wanted to add something to the product to make it like what we like to call a triple action product. Right? It's an antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, and an insect repellent. So that's how we got the idea of HoneyCure. But we used honey. Why? It was because some of the natural, it's one of the natural, most strong natural product out there.
In that specific case that really inspired it was there's a young child in the ICU who had received burns to 70% of her body. What had happened was her big sister had decided to help mom out and give her little sister a bath, and went and dunked her sister into a tub of boiling hot water, which, when you're our age and we're adults, you can get dunked into a shower or a tub of pretty hot water and you'll probably come out of it screaming, but you'll be fine for the most part, maybe a little skin redness. But for a little kid, their skin is really, really sensitive. And so she received second-degree burns and first-degree burns just to almost everywhere on her body except for a little segment on her head. And it's a very serious thing, and the mortality rate for that, the way it works is you take the percentage and then you interpret it as a raw number, and then you add their age to it. So for a 7-month-old, under a year old, you're talking about a 70% mortality rate if not treated correctly. And in Children's Hospital, their go-to treatment is Silvadene. And so what Silvadene really is it's a silver compound that it acts like a very thick paste. So it spreads on almost like putting really thick raw peanut butter that's been kept in the refrigerator without a lid on for like 3 weeks. So I think everyone kind of knows what that's like, where it's like kind of chunky and doesn't really go on the sandwich well. It sucks to spread. Silvadene's that every day, all day. 24/7. Yeah. Now imagine putting that on a kid. Like it's nightmarish because the kid's squirming around, doesn't like it, hurts them, and then it dries and crusts on their skin. So then you have to scrape it off with a scalpel blade, which also causes the kid to squirm around and cry and fuss. And this is all a huge process because it's so important that it's done on a daily basis, sometimes twice a day, to make sure that the wound is healing and to make sure that child has the best chance of survival. And so when we had observed this case, we decided right away there had to be a better way. Yeah. And we know that there's better ways on the market. There's more than one product out there that has been developed either of a silver compound or similar derivative. But the main problem with silver is that it inhibits skin growth. So the skin actually grows slower. So then you extend your treatment cycles. And so we wanted to get away from both that, make it easier, and have a good positive impact on these in this whole segment. What our biggest problem was, though, is that pediatric care is heavily regulated, and to the extent that we would have to do several clinical trials, and we would have to spend almost 7 years proving the product. And that we estimated that whole cost would cost us between $2 and $7 million, which is a small company, and two young guys who have a very small research portfolio behind us. It's very difficult to manage that, especially in a wound care product market that is very much so highly competitive, and there's a lot of jostling and mudslinging between the products. So as we started to explore and evaluate our competition, we found that the veterinary market is a rather quiet subsection of that whole thing. It allows us to sell and to really develop the product and gather data on it, while having a positive impact, because animals receive probably 10% of the products that are available for humans. Animals have access to. So we can have a positive impact, we can get data, we can really make a difference, and then we can reevaluate in a couple of years as we prove ourselves and show traction that maybe we're going to come back to the human care market. And when we do make that step, do we need to improve the product further? Do we need what clinical trial steps do we need to make, and where are we going to go? How are we going to go about it?
Yeah. So it sounds like you made that pivot from like human to animal, but I can imagine that the product would work differently, like on horses, for example, than it would on a human, or is that not the case?
Actually, that's not it will work the same way, because they actually would test human products on horses before they have it available in humans, because they're very close to us. So the wound healing process is similar when it comes to animals, and we are part of it. It's just the differences would be like the time it takes to heal, and that is because how many bacterias that inhibit the wound to close, or it's just the environment, a lot of things. But when it comes to the wound itself to heal, it's the same thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We like to say all mammals all mammalian skin heals itself, and that's essentially what wound care is. The wound's gonna heal.
No matter what, the wound is gonna heal.
It wants to heal.
What we do, or what other products would do, is just accelerate it, right? But a wound will heal. What stops a wound from healing is infections, and because if it's infected, it will keep inflaming, and inflammation is a stage in the wound healing process. It has to go over that step to start the next stage of the wound healing, which is wound closure, epithelialization, and then eventually and scarring. Actually, talking about wound healing, scarring is wound healing. So having a scar is not just having a scar; it's actually the wound healing. Right. It just takes time, years, for it to get back to what it was.
I see.
And that's something unique about HoneyCure. Basically, we say it prevents scarring, but what it does is it jumps that stage. You know what I mean? Like it goes over that scar. It doesn't let the scarring happen.
And that's one of the reasons why we went with honey as a product too. Is that honey is a part of a subsection of the market called wet wound healing therapies, which we're familiar with as biomedical engineers, because this is one of the biggest areas of biomaterials research at the moment for wound care. Is wet wound healing therapies are proven now to be superior to any other wound care therapy out there, including Silvadene, and there's other gauze wraps and bandage wraps that you can put over it. Silverline is a silver gauze that weave that you can put over a wound. So wet wound healing, even as simple as just simple petroleum jelly, outperforms these products. As long as you can prevent infection and inflammation, and that's where HoneyCure comes in. It fights infection and inflammation, and it's very fast, and it makes it a very positive wet wound healing environment.
Like even, sorry to jump in, but even with the human market, when we were developing this product to treat pediatric burn patients, one unique thing about it was that made us come up with it is you can't give anesthesia to pediatric patients, kids, which is why they actually do not survive because of the trauma. Not actually because of the fire itself or the burn itself, it's the trauma. And when I say trauma, it's yes, mentally and physically. The trauma of the wounds keeps spreading, like the burn, and it keeps destroying the other healthy tissue. And the person himself cannot bear that pain, right? And they can't give them anesthesia.
Right.
So you're stuck, right? Like, should I clean that wound and cause pain to the patient, or just put something on it and hope it works? You know. So that's why HoneyCure does both. You know, takes the pain away when you apply it. You don't have to give anesthesia with it, and it works on the infections, and it lets the wound heal.
So, you know, what started off as a project is turning into a business, which are two completely different things. So, tell me a little bit how you are starting to make that jump or growing into a project into a business.
Like how we started with that. So right after, that's actually a funny story because right when we, at the end of that class, it was called Clinical Immersion for Engineers, by the way. It was at DMC. Sean came, well, actually Sean didn't tell me. All of a sudden, we talked about taking this into a business, but we didn't do anything yet. One day I see this invitation from DTX, launched the Detroit Technology Exchange program. It's an accelerator program. And Sean applied for us without telling me.
Well, no, hey, wait, we talked about it.
He did not.
Talked about it.
He did not mention it.
We had a third business partner at the time, too, Greg, who later backed out because he was a little risk adverse. But
that's what happened.
Yeah, we had talked about it. We had a different business idea that we were workshopping at the time.
Maybe I don't remember. But all I remember is I was surprised by it. And we attended DTX with the intention of having this product for human market, right?
Yep.
You didn't tell me. You didn't tell me.
No, yeah, we definitely were very naive in the beginning of the program.
Oh yeah, even our name.
Yeah.
Our name was our initials.
Yeah.
So it actually sounded like HAC, HAC.
Hack Medical.
Hack Medical.
We thought it was catchy, and it turned out to be anything but.
Yeah.
Right.
That was stupid. We had no idea of anything, and then we started digging in and doing the accelerator program. We did more than 100 customer discovery calls, sneaked in ICUs at hospitals.
It wasn't a sneak.
It was a sneak.
I went up to the receptionist and I said, I need to go talk to someone in the ICU. And they're like, okay, go through those doors.
Well, you said we had an appointment. Well, we didn't. We just waited for someone to open the door and we walked in.
Oh, sweet.
Two different interpretations of the experience. I do remember, though, that we just walked right in and we asked someone a question and they're like, oh yeah, go over here. And then we had like a 3-hour-long conversation with like 4 different nurses.
Wow.
It was...
And then it was... And then it was at the end of the program that we got like an idea from someone.
Elaine, actually.
Elaine, yeah. To look into the veterinary care market. We were done with the program almost like 1 week out, and we got the idea like, why don't you just switch to veterinary care market? Because what we found is obstacles in the human market.
Every direction there was obstacles. And our coach in the program, Joe LaCavali, who's the head of the incubator over at Spark East in Ypsilanti. Really, really, really interactive coach. Awesome experience with him. He just made the offhanded remark like, there's an SBVC guy from the Small Business Development Commission, Elaine Piet. He does biotech products. He might have a couple ideas for you guys. So he scheduled a meeting. Elaine comes by. Elaine is hilarious. He has this wonderful rapport with Rami because Elaine has a brother or a brother-in-law who did business in Cairo, and Rami grew up in Cairo. So of course, they hit it off great right away. And next thing you know, Elaine's like, yeah, so I do biotech products a lot, but your product sounds almost really relevant for the horses I keep. And I was like, well, you keep horses? And Elaine keeps like $150,000 horses.
Wow.
On a farm outside of the city. And he starts telling us about this whole market space and about all these different products that are out there, and some of these products are proof of concept products that came out of human research and never cut their teeth in human care, but they just got introduced to the horse care market. And some of these products don't work. And as a very expensive horse owner, he keeps a very close eye on all of it. So he's like, yeah, if you guys actually have a product that works, you should really kind of look into it. And like Rami said, in the last week and a half of the program, we did like 35 more interviews
with veterinarians. And at the end, when everybody's pitching at the end of the program, we actually won the award, and it was called
Best Pivot.
The Best Pivot.
Yeah.
Because we didn't pivot our product, we pivoted the market, like the whole market.
Yeah. Which influenced the whole business.
Yeah. So it's not like the other teams they had like apps. We were the only team that had an actual, product. The others were concepts or apps, maybe store
Services.
Yeah. So they would pivot, what they would provide. That's why they gave us the best pivot, because we pivoted the market.
Yeah, and it's a very difficult program, the Detroit Technology Exchange. We started with 12 different companies. One company made it about halfway through and then dropped out.
I'm sorry, we started with 35 that applied.
Yeah.
And you apply with a 1-minute video.
Yep.
That you have to tell them the idea, and based on that 1 minute, they either accept you or not.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then 12 companies got accepted, and then one dropped out halfway through. They just couldn't quite keep up with all the work. And then another company ended up pretty much just falling apart at the very end of it. They're actually, the two guys who stuck around until the end of the program in that company were very, very passionate, really behind their product. And the problem is that when they interviewed people, they ran into the classic startup problem of they had a great idea, but people just weren't biting on it. Like, it was, they had a very small subsection of people who were interested, but the greater majority was just kind of like,
And that's actually very important, because, like, your question was, how did we move from a project to a business? And doing this accelerator program, opens up our eyes into whether this is actually a good project or a good business, right? Because everybody's idea is the best. Yeah. I have an idea, this is the best thing ever. Until you actually talk to people that this idea will affect. And if you find out that it's not before actually putting time and money in it, it's way better than just failing.
Yeah, and the customer discovery process too is extraordinarily valuable. in that, like we learned that you just don't go up to someone and say like, I have HoneyCure and it does this and it's amazing and it's the best idea ever. Because people will probably go back and say, they're like, that's a pretty good idea. You should do that. But it's the difference of asking questions that make them say, that's a pretty good idea, you should do that, to this is what my problem is and this is what I'm looking for to solve it. And then when you learn to ask those questions as part of the customer discovery process, you can go back and you can interview 5 different people and you can have really long, intense, interesting discussions with them about what they deal with over the course of a day that's a problem in your market space that you're working in. And then you take those notes and you say like, well, this is how I stack up against what their perceived problems are. And you learn as part of the process that sometimes the customer is always right and sometimes the customer is wrong. It's how that you make those connections, though, is what matters as part of it. Because someone could go out and say, like, my computer sucks. And they could give you a whole long list of problems. But instead of actually having a piece of hardware that's not good, it might just be the way that they were educated on using it. So the hardware might be perfectly fine. And we found that to be very much the case in wound care products, where there's a lot of wound care products out there that do different things, and the education of the use behind them is different. The ease of access to some of them is different. The price points and how they're used and all of that. It's such a diverse, complicated, very competitive market that's created, like I said, and, there's a lot of mudslinging in between the two of it. So there's confusion, there's issues, there's all sorts of stuff that can be addressed. But what we found was that you can try and bite all these small little problems and solve this greater picture of confusion, or you really have to figure out like, right, there's a problem, my minimal viable product addresses it, and it's going to net the biggest audience. And it's going to target the most individuals with the biggest effect for them. And that's really what you're aiming to do in the customer discovery product. Or product phase.
Right. So let's talk about product development for a second, because what I'm imagining is you guys in a lab, like experimenting with honey and all these different products. And like, what was that process like, and how long did it take you to actually find something that worked?
It wasn't a lab.
Yeah.
It was a year and a half though. It took us about a year and a half to really get it down.
Yeah, I think not a year and a half. Maybe
no.
less.
The first iteration of HoneyCure was actually a wax.
So the idea, we actually made it. But like I said, we went into it without making any product yet into the accelerator program to see first if there is a problem to solve or not. Then we went to the product development phase. And it wasn't a lab, no. It was his kitchen and my basement.
Right.
Yeah, it was really simple.
It was, I can't tell you more, but like what we used exactly. But we started, basically what we did, it's not just HoneyCure. What we created is a formula to add, those ingredients together at the right percentages, right? To be a strong antimicrobial and a strong anti-inflammatory and the other properties.
A majority of our product development phase that really led to the formula development was spent in predicate research review. So we reviewed probably over, I think like 25 gigabytes worth of research data. Wow. So we accumulated an incredible amount of research materials. And we did so through purchasing it online. There's a lot of open source journals and whatnot. We made use of our Wayne State student connections over there too. It was just so much research to the point like where we have our internal documents now generated from all of that, and we share that to people who who work with us and help us develop the business further, and they're like, this is too much. Like, you guys spend way too much time on this.
Yeah.
Well,
but it's a major part of the process. To make a product.
We had to make sure first, as engineers too, we have to make sure before we actually make the product. And we started making several types of formulas, like several formulations, until we agreed. And even after we create something, we would show it to some context to see what they think about it. When it comes to like viscosity, when it comes to like texture, smell. But yeah, that was our first trial, was my dad, basically.
Yeah.
And we trained it on your girlfriend.
And yeah,
On you.
On me, my brother.
On me. On our business partner Greg, who
Yeah.
burned himself while making the product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
We had a fairly robust
Yeah.
friends and family trial.
let me just say, it was messy and all over the place with ideas as well. It's bad to have 3 engineers,
Yeah.
you know.
And 3 different, totally different work styles too.
Yeah,
Like,
3 different.
like Rami's a very tangible person where he writes everything out. He's got like lists and he's got things that he's done that's really shown everything out on physical paper. And then there's like me, who I'm completely abstract.
Chaotic.
And he describes me as chaotic. But there's an order to it.
No,
and,
chaotic and destructive.
and then there was our third business partner at the time who, if he would make the world's most organized person look unorganized. Like,
Really?
he was extraordinarily organized about everything.
Yeah, it freaks out with
so
now.
there was days that we all kind of graded against each other in the creative process of this.
But it was good experience because we ended up getting the right formula at the end. We did change the formula even after the initial batch.
Yes. Yeah.
I will say that, yeah, the initial batch, we changed it when Sean and I discussed it. That was after our third partner left. Then we decided to make a, what do you call it in English? Change. Yeah, change it a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Like a
we-
new iteration, basically.
Yeah, a slight.
Version 2.0.
Yeah.
But basically listening to our customers.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
And accommodating it.
Yeah, we've done a lot to listen to what their needs have been. There was in the very first initial batch, which was only about like what 45, 50 units.
There was a big mess up.
Yeah, there was some of it was a little bit more viscous, some of it was a little less viscous.
Some of
we
it
had
was
to
lost.
Yeah, we had to
A
address
lot of
quite a
it.
bit problems there. Yeah, yeah.
So let's talk about this business journey a little bit. Have you guys received any like pushback or obstacles? People saying, you know, this product doesn't make any sense or things like that.
So we actually never had anyone telling us that product doesn't make sense.
I would dispute that.
Who?
We have had a few people.
I had a lady first that kept telling me to use something else in my product. I kept telling her to go away. She wouldn't let me go.
She was a very old lady.
Yeah.
So in the end, we ended up making our product very natural. It's a completely natural product, which puts it in a very good place within the veterinary care market. Unfortunately, doing so opens the door to a lot of people who think that their particular choices in natural care products should be reciprocated by everyone. You know, at the end of the day, everyone has to use what's right for them. And you know, our product we've developed rooting it in science as much as we can. So we've tried to avoid all of the folklore and all of that. And that's been a huge intention of running clinical trials and doing all the research that we do, is to say, like, this isn't just a natural product, it's engineered.
Yeah.
And it just happens to be natural.
And it's
in
not
its
snake
derivatives.
oil.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you, because a lot of people take this as the best product ever. No, it's not the best product ever, but it's a product that actually works.
Yeah, it does a very specific thing for
Yeah, it works.
a very specific type of condition that happens to do a lot to heal on its own. It's just our product makes that healing on its own happen more
Yeah.
efficiently. So, you know, wounds heal no matter what. And by keeping them clean, sterile, and uninflamed, they heal better and faster. And so some people can take that to associate it, meaning like, I have a laceration that goes from here to here, and then it like has like this weird fungus growing.
See,
in
that's
it.
a great point, because we would get like people telling us like both, like our stuff that we use is better, even though they didn't try our stuff. Like they just decided that no, this is better. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But we also get people that would come and say, I want to use it for arthritis, for example. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Because they want us to tell them, yes, it will work. Because it's, and we don't want that, because we don't want to sound like those. There are other people in shows that would have like a big list a banner list of
Every condition
you could think of, it treats it.
Yeah.
Anything. Our product is not that. It's not snake oil. It's not like.
I think to answer your question fully in terms of pushback from the market, being involved in a veterinary and medical type product, it's shown us that anything like people have a lot of things that they use on reflux. They have go-tos. Like some people use ibuprofen for everything. And they could have something like a viral illness, and ibuprofen.
And they take antibiotics.
And they take antibiotics and ibuprofen, and it's like, well, the antibiotics
Not
aren't
doing
doing
anything.
anything, and the ibuprofen is treating your fever. Like it's doing nothing more.
Not even.
But
doesn't treat.
But people have their go-tos, and that's where our biggest pushback comes from. Is this being a medical product and having that natural attachment to it. There's a lot of people out there that have a lot of things that they just do because it's this thing that they've done forever. Or they do that because someone very close and very trusted to them told them to do it. And they don't want to change because, in medical and veterinary fields, change is a risk. It's your health or the health of your animals at stake. And a lot of people feel more responsible for their animals than they do themselves.
Right.
So, now you're treating their dog, their horse, their cat, and it's like, wow, if, their life is in my hands and they have no idea what's happening to them, even though they know they're bleeding. Like, I'm putting this thing on it, I need to know it works. And that's where, we work with our customers a lot in trying to educate them about the product and about the processes behind the product and the science. Because, it's the single greatest way to defeat pushback is to teach. And that's, I think, where we have our greatest inroads.
You still get, like you said, someone said that product doesn't work, or, we had one customer that said that. And what happened is,
she didn't use the product, right?
Yeah, which can happen with any product. If you do not use it the right way, and if you're not sure of the right way, you can still ask, right? She didn't reach out to us to ask if she wasn't sure. And the problem is she came in with an already infected, pretty bad wound on her horse. Mm-hmm. And saw us, bought the product. We told her it would work, but you gotta follow the instructions.
To a T.
To a T.
And consult her veterinarian where needed.
Always consult your veterinarian, because we're not vets.
Yeah.
We're engineers, but we know how to use our product, but you still, for specific wounds, you gotta go to the doctor anyways, right? Yeah. She didn't, and she didn't listen to our instructions, and obviously, didn't work.
Right.
I don't think it got worse. In her eyes, it got worse, but it didn't. Even though we showed the wound to a vet, just said nothing happened to her. It didn't get better, it didn't get worse. I mean, it will get worse because it's not getting better. But yeah, that's one of the push, but that's the only one.
It's like someone being prescribed high blood pressure medication and then taking it incorrectly and then calling the company and saying like,
exactly,
you gave me high blood pressure medication, that doesn't work. And the company's going to go back and say like, well, wait a minute, like, this has a set of use instructions that says consult your doctor.
Right.
And you didn't consult your doctor, you didn't consult us, you didn't consult all of the resources that are available to you, you just did your thing.
Yeah.
And then things happened.
Yeah.
And that was exactly what this case was.
Just like 2 more questions.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to budding entrepreneurs that are looking to start a product or their own business in Detroit specifically, but even not in Detroit? What kind of advice would you give?
What kind of advice to give other people?
Yeah.
Like that you want to start something like us?
Yeah.
The biggest thing I learned in the beginning was customer discovery. That is a huge thing. Even, I would start doing that before even getting into like an accelerated program, for example. Because that is a very important step too. But customer discovery, just find out if there is a problem you're solving or not. Before you waste your years, and effort, instead of maybe doing something better with the same idea, but pivoting it.
Yep.
Because it's okay to do that. That's how a lot of things started, like Coca-Cola. It wasn't a drink; it was more like a drug. Viagra wasn't even for that reason. It was actually to treat high blood pressure, but the side effect was better than that.
Right.
So it's like, I think it's better to do a lot of customer discovery.
Yeah.
I think to piggyback off Rami, especially for budding entrepreneurs, like, we all talk about customer discovery and we all, like, once you've done it, you really know what it is. But if it's so important to do it, and it's so important to do it well, that you don't necessarily need to be in an accelerated program to do it. So seek out help in doing that. Like, you can go to Techtown, you can go to just about any incubator in the city, and you can walk in the door and you can say, like, hey, I have a product idea, and I interviewed like 3 people, and I got all this data, and I don't know what to do with it. And they'll sit down with you and they'll say, well, what questions did you ask? Like, what did you do? And what are you doing with it? Like, why are you doing this and all this? They'll ask you the questions that you need to then go back and say, like, all right, I can answer these myself, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to do more customer discovery, and I'm going to talk to more people, and I'm going to see if I have a business. And in that way, you can actually make an accelerated program happen without actually being in one.
Yeah.
Because customer discovery is essentially the accelerator program. Your single greatest source of information is your customer.
Right.
And you can't get any better than that.
Like, I would have a lot of advices, but educate yourself on how to build a business model, how to ask questions, reaching out to the right people for advice and help.
The business plan, I would say, is probably it's important, but it's not that important in comparison to really knowing who your customer
understanding
is.
it.
Yeah.
Understanding
parts
how
of
it all
the
fits
business together.
Because a lot of people just go and like file for an LLC, and I have a company now, and okay, it costs you $65.
Yeah.
But you might end up not solving anyone's problem except yourself, because you think it is a problem.
Yeah.
When another advice would be when you reach out to similar companies with the same idea, be careful, obviously. Don't share everything, because they might shut you down. Not even steal it, but they might shut you down. Tell you, no, it's not going to work. Just to keep you out of the market.
Yeah, I would say in the biomedical engineering space, that's more common than not. I think I read something somewhere that 75% of all patents are not used because companies just buy them and sit on them.
Yeah, really?
Oh yeah. Wow. They'll go after your idea, and they have the money to do it.
Yeah, it's because they have something that's working, and they don't want you to compete with them.
So you guys are a Detroit-based business. You've built this product in Detroit. You built the business in Detroit. So what to you makes Detroit so special?
What to me makes Detroit so special?
I think for me, Detroit's my home.
It's not mine.
I grew up here. Growing up, I witnessed all sorts of things here. Like my uncle John was in the Detroit Regional Chamber, and he before the revitalization started, he was trying to bring businesses and companies here into Detroit, and I always thought that was really interesting. And he always had an issue with it because before the revitalization really started, these companies would come and they would see it and they'd be like, "Hey, Detroit's here," and then it's like, "But there's Troy. We'll go out to Troy, or we'll go out to Novi, or we'll go over here, Toledo, or whatnot." And now it's exciting in that Detroit's actually growing again, and the city has a rich history behind it. It's it was a boom town at one point because it was the end of a trading road for the French, and then it became the end of the line for immigrants into America before the Manifest Destiny really opened up the West. And then it grew from there on. It was the site of the first assembly plants. It's been a huge part of Americans' history and the world's history throughout. I think there's a lot of reasons to be proud of the city and to really respect it as not just an industry power, but as also a cultural power, in the sense that Detroit was the epitome of a cultural melting pot for America for so long. And there's so much more here than it just meets the eye. And in terms of a startup community too, we're such a more friendly community. Mm-hmm. You go out west to like Silicon Valley or out east to like Boston area and whatnot, and there's so much competition to get the best out, to do the best, to get the most money, to get the biggest idea, to accumulate the most customers. But here in Detroit, we recognize that is important to show traction. Yes, some of our companies here are extraordinarily successful in Michigan. Duo Security is one of those, right, where they just sold for like a couple $2 billion after only a few years in operation. But even Duo's founder will tell you that to him that was all a surprise. What he really appreciated about being here is there's such a vibrant community of people. You can walk into Ann Arbor Spark and then go into Ann Arbor or to Detroit Tech Town, and someone will try and help you with your business. And other startup co-founders or founders and your co-founders and people who are just interested in consulting with your startup are so helpful for almost no cost sometimes to completely pro bono work for you. That's really what's exciting about the Detroit startup scene. It's not just something that is focused on success. It's focused on building. It's more than just that success. It's focused on building people, mm-hmm, which I think in the long run is really beneficial to an area because it fosters cooperation, which should in the long run yield better results than competition.
Yeah, I think I agree with Sean a lot. I didn't grow up here. I did see Detroit I would say at its worst when I moved here in 2008. It was terrible, and I lived in Midtown.
You lived in Cathedral Tower.
Cathedral Tower in Hancock, just because it was right next to the police station.
Right.
The only one there. So I've seen it bad, and then I've seen it get better over the past 10 years. And I'm really happy with it, especially when it comes to like startups and small businesses. It's easier for them to work here or to start here. But what I actually noticed that I like is they're building Detroit, right? So like you, for example, you're doing an amazing thing here with this piece of history. This is, at the end of the day, it's a piece of history. Yeah. And I appreciate history. It's people, like the people here care a lot about the city. Yeah. Than just, obviously everybody cares about their success, and living, but at the same time it's embedded to care about the city. Yeah. Like you could have chosen anywhere else to start your thing. Right. but you started here, you know.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I think that's it's the embedding of caring for the city while getting successful is something you guys do, like we do it naturally, not noticing it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know.
Well, cool. For people watching or for people listening, where can they find you guys if they want to connect with you?
HoneyCure.us.
HoneyCure.us, you'll find all of our information. If you just look us up on Google, you'll find us right away. Yeah.
All right. Well, Rami and Sean, I appreciate you guys coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you very much.
Absolutely. And for everybody watching, until next time, stay tuned.
Bye.